Good morning. This is the news at 10. I'm Bill McDermott. Welcome to all international news. A man was spotted yesterday on the streets of Oslo, half naked, exhausted, frantically holding a pack of detergent and repeating again and again. The pack with the small capsules was smaller, but more concentrated and with a lovely lavender smell. Maybe I didn't make the right investment. This is a disaster. Why he banged his head against the wall. In good health, but obviously very deranged. The man was identified as Elling Hamso, once known in the meetings community as the ROI guru, the measuring Norwegian, or the smile sheet killer. You, like many event professionals, probably saw him predicating in IBTM world or drawing pyramids in the toilets of IMEX, a very strange type of hooliganism. He was detained without resistance, just asking the surprised policeman, frankly, do you think an event is done to get people to enjoy the food? Then why the smile sheets? Policeman Bjorn Lundström looked surprised, but then he retorted, true, but then meeting your communication objectives does require the experience to be a positive one, doesn't it? His colleague, Lars Jansen, violently disagreed, saying, Bjorn, this is just the problem with the meetings industry. You focus on the hospitality rather than on the behavior change. A violent debate erupted with several bystanders holding different points of view on the subject. Norway, obviously, is a very advanced meetings country. I personally got to know Elling Hamso 16 years ago in 2005. He had recently created the European ROI Institute. He was 25 years old. He was young and handsome and with beautiful lush hair. He already had a clear sense of a mission. We had lunch. After he showed me the spreadsheets he had just created to decide whether to have lasagna or steak for lunch. He was a bit geeky maybe, but a really cool guy. He trained people, he preached, he changed mindsets. He was a star. He had a dazzling career. He's a bit our Jim Morrison, no? Measure fast, die young, says a tattoo on his heart. A shooting star. 16 years later, look at him. He's 66 years old now. His lush hair is gone, or pretty much. He's a shadow of his former self. He's tired. He sometimes mixes a level 3 learning objective with a level 4 behavior change. Can you believe that? This is time for a farewell to Elling. I think his mission is accomplished and he deserves to rest. As any cult leader, of course, Elling had his followers. We gathered two of them, Ilka and Rosa, who managed to escape the sect. But then as one of them told me, you never actually leave the ROI community. It stays with you. Elling's perverse manipulation of human minds changes your way of thinking forever. You end up without friends as they get tired of having you question the behavior change involved in going for a beer after a movie. Ilka and Rosa are obviously still emotionally fragile, so we will be gentle with them. We will actually even make them believe that ROI is real so that we don't traumatize them. And who knows, maybe they will convince us. So it's time to say welcome to the guru and to the students. Elling, Rosa, Ilka, welcome. A pleasure being with you. How are you?
Thank you. It's very happy to be here.
I'm very good as well. Thank you very much. And I couldn't escape from the sect. That's a problem.
You couldn't escape?
No.
We have all been at the same time inspired and traumatized by this man here. Elling, first a collective thank you, because we know we are an industry which needs to justify itself, to show its value, and this is your retiring. That's why we're doing this webinar. Your value added to the industry collectively has been amazing. I think you've been one of the people who have brought more, who have got us more to change our way of thinking of events. And I'm not sure your mission is accomplished because there's still a lot of smile sheets around, but you did bring a lot of value. I want to also say thank you to Ilka and Rosa, who had the good taste of putting on orange clothes for a webinar of Evento Plus. This is our color. Elling, your fashion sense is not your quality. We'll give you the ROI focus. We start with Elling. Summarize 16 years in 3 minutes, please. Can you summarize in a simplified way what ROI is about? I'll give you about 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. 3 minutes and
Crazy.
20 seconds if you
It's taken me 15 minutes to really understand, 15 years to really understand it. But anyway, well, let me start by saying something pretty obvious. If you're going to measure ROI, or if you're going to measure anything, you need first to have some objectives to measure against. I mean, if you don't have objectives, you don't even know what data to collect. So that's always where we start. And we have different types, different categories of objectives. And the most important ones are those that we call the behavior objectives. After your event, you want your participants to go away and physically do something. It's not just what they think and feel, but you want them to do something which will benefit your meeting owner and other stakeholders. So we call those behavior objectives, and we measure if we met those. And once you've decided what kind of behavior you need to see, you need to ask yourself, well, why don't they do that already? Because you need to understand why they don't do that already in order to design what we call the learning experience, which is your event. Your event is a string of learning experiences. They learn information and knowledge. They learn new attitudes. They learn to know new people during networking. So you set some very specific, detailed and measurable learning objectives, and you measure, did we meet those? That for learning to happen, you need to have what we call a good learning environment. So if you're online, you need a good online platform. For a physical meeting, you need a nice meeting room, you need engagement, and you need participation, and you need good speakers, all this stuff that will make learning happen. So we set objectives for that, and we measure, did we meet our learning objectives? And last but not the least, we want to make sure that we have the right people in the room. So that's our audience, target audience objective. And the right people are always those who can potentially change their behavior and give value to stakeholders. So we have a number of different objectives. You mentioned the ROI pyramid. We had the right people in the room. We had engagement and participation. We had a good learning environment. So they learned something. We changed their attitude. And as a result, they did what we wanted them to do. And the result of the behavior is the real business value. That's what drives our sales or makes our organization more effective. And if you put a money value to that and compare to the cost of your event, you have your event profit. And that's the ROI.
Okay, one supplementary question to that. What is complex? People always, I believe, people always come to you and say, oh, I just did this event, help me measure it. Is the bulk of the work not on measuring, but on defining what behavior change is, what is stopping them from behaving the way they should? Doesn't it end up being almost more a strategy work than measuring work?
Yes, and it's all about setting objectives and understand how to write good objectives. Setting the right objectives at these different levels that I mentioned is probably 80% of your measurement. Once you have detailed, measurable objectives, measuring isn't the problem, you know. And you know, this is the magic. We call this the ROI magic. You set your objectives, and the first thing you do before you start planning your event, and then you give those detailed objectives to your meeting designers, whoever's going to design the format and the content of your meeting. And now they will design something which specifically meets your objectives. So your event gets better. Because you decide to measure, you need to set objectives. Because you have objectives, your event will deliver on those objectives. It's magic. So think of the ROI and measurement, you know, more in terms of a meeting design methodology, you know, at least as much as it is a measurement methodology. Did
Wonderful.
You understand that?
That's perfect. It's that simple. It's even a mystery that in 2021 it's not in everybody's head, because it's common sense in a way. Then there's a lot of mechanics which are difficult. There are a lot of methodology issues which are complex, I believe, but the basis of it is amazingly common sense.
Simple common sense.
Okay, Rosa Garriga, you're meeting architect at Kenneth Group, and you worked with Elling for a while, and you're a devotee, you're a member of the cult. I would like all three participants to make it concrete, to give also in a couple of minutes an example of an event, what work was done and how it helped make the event more relevant, and show that it was more relevant, that its results justified the event. Rosa, you organize especially congresses, or Kenneth organizes especially congresses. You have an example of a congress for us in which the methodology was applied with success?
Yes, I do. And I think it's very interesting to speak about medical associations, the congresses that they do, because people tend to think that the ROI methodology is only to measure money, and that's so far from the truth. Because I'm using that all the time for medical congresses as well, from associations, which mean, of course, they want to be profitable in the sense of getting their money back, the organizer. But the association has a very clear mission and vision, which often is related to improving the livelihood, for example, of people with a certain disease. That's typically the mission statement. And so associations are very clear on the objectives that they have to achieve to meet that goal, and the Congress plays a big part. So from that point of view, it's very easy to speak with them about objectives, and we always measure at least target audience and learning. But I could talk about this new event that we created for a medical association from Latin America, where they wanted to do a new event about rheumatology. And so we did a very thorough work on the, let's say, identifying the different categories of participants, then their learning needs, and then we designed the event around that. And I was both the meeting architect, let's say, and the one that was measuring it. So that was very useful. And then what we also did was we did the evaluation at the end of the event. And then we asked them, to the survey participants, is it okay that we contact you in a few months' time so we can get your feedback on what have you applied, because you came to this Congress? And in this particular case, we just got a few people actually to say yes. So it was a very small sample, and we decided not to do, let's say, that study afterwards. But the event was very successful because it was designed just for that audience and to meet those objectives. So I don't know if I'm speaking too much, or does that make sense?
It does make sense. This makes sense. It is sad because as we're talking about behavior change, the behavior change doesn't happen in the meeting room or on the flight back home. It happens in the coming months. Your experience is that people are a bit shy, or are not very keen to do this analysis months later. Attendees or the meeting owner, does the meeting owner want to have to dedicate specific time a few months later to say, okay, was it put into practice?
Right. Yeah, well, from the organizer point of view, the association, let's say the owner, I think maybe they don't do a formal measurement of asking, what did you change in your practice? But I think as an association, they do so many other activities that they see the feedback, and they do scientific studies on changes. So I think they see the return. And then from individual attendees, I guess they are, once they are after the event, it's gone, and they don't want to think about that. But I think the ROI in that case is so clear. It just maybe the week after, when they are back in their practice, in the hospital with patients, they are already apply what they've learned, like new skills on how to diagnose an illness, whatever. So it's very clear, the return investment, which is not financial, but it's medical outcomes, patient outcomes.
Okay, yeah, it's at least what the doctors know after the event, ideally what they put into practice, and if possible, the impact on patient health, which is amazing. No? If we do events which help save lives, when then we're really relevant.
Yeah, and there are more and more models. I don't remember now the name, but I've seen these pyramids where at the top it says patient outcomes. So more and more studies on that, coming from doctors even. I've seen studies on the difference on behavioral change if you do, let's say, just a lecture versus something that's more interactive. And that's being done by doctors. So yeah, so that's very interesting.
Okay, great. Last one, you apply these types of principles since you were in the sect. It's clear. Now you apply these kinds of principles whenever you plan an event.
Yes, always.
In a way, more formalized or less, but it
exactly
changed. It did get into your head.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what Elling was saying, for me, it's so much more than measuring. It's about thinking how events create value and what different categories of participants do we have and what are their needs and how every piece of the event is helping to meet those needs. And if it's not, then is it necessary that we do that we spend money on that? So everything we do is with that mindset. Yeah, and if we can, I've spent one day or maybe even 2 days with a client, just thinking about the strategy, which participants we have, what do they need, how are we gonna design the program to meet those needs. So, and that's something that in this case, medical associations really understand because as I said, they are very driven, they are very focused on their goals.
Perfect. Let's go to Germany. I believe Ilka Zeig, marketing communication manager at SIG Vertriebs GmbH. You can see I'm native German.
I'm impressed.
Ilka, can you tell us one example of event? So I believe it's not going to be medical congress, but more a corporate event in which the principles of ROI were applied?
Of course. So, well, I
believe lead generation for you was important, no?
Yeah. So I'm working for a sales organization at SIG, the German sales organization, and we are very healthy. So all we are, the company is. So I don't know whoever, but its family is SIG is an old family. It's really their last name, so that's the name of the company. Became the name of the company. Yes, so I'm working for a sales organization, and the only thing that counts is how much we have sold. So of course we apply the methodology, maybe in our own language, but in the same structure. And what we started with is a trade show, because we are joining a lot of trade shows normally. This is the basic platform for us to generate leads. And in a sales organization, as you said, leads are important to help sales to generate business, especially qualified leads. So what does it mean? What this sales organization has done before, they have just counted the number of leads. What they have, which they have generated from any kind of events, especially from trade shows. And when I started last year, I said, well, and how much did this contribute to your success, to your business, to your revenue, to whatever you have sold? And they couldn't tell us. And that's why we started to better plan and measure those trade shows. And the first thing we did together with the sales team was to define objectives. And you can't imagine how difficult it is. So don't expect that you can just apply the methodology like this. It's really a mindset change, and it takes a lot of time. And the first thing you need is a buddy in your company. And I was lucky because I had the general manager supporting this. He wanted to know exactly the results and the outcome of events and the contribution to sales. And so that's how we started. And the other thing for sales is, of course, to tell you how much business they expect and how much revenue increase they need for specific products, solutions, or whatever. And we are working with sensor technology, so we are talking about sensors. And so we defined the number of leads, but also we defined how much revenue they think the trade show contributes to the overall revenue. And that's the first challenge, because nobody knows. And at least SIG doesn't know, and they never measured it before. So you don't have really a benchmark. You cannot say that's my KPI, but you can set it for the first step and just say, let's put it the most realistic figure in place. And that's what we did. So we defined the value of the leads that we generate, and the number of opportunities, true business opportunities we can generate with the trade show. And after that, I asked them, okay, if you want to achieve this revenue figures, what do your clients have to do to achieve this? And that's for sales organization, again, it's easy, that's the behavior. So they want to know, they want to have appointments. That's the most important thing. So they want to call all the visitors on a trade show, to call them afterwards. Of course, you don't have appointments immediately after a show, so there must be something else. And we have defined a number of behavior changes from true appointments, which is great, of course, but also clicks on our website where they were able to download something that we have uploaded just for the event. We have created landing pages to collect additional leads after the event, but and measured, did they really go to this landing page because of the trade show, and what have they done there? And then we have measured phone calls and so on and so forth. So all these kind of behavior changes, and we had to find out, of course, first, was there really a peak during the event time? Because if the number of phone calls or meetings is the same as before, then it's of course difficult to say that the event contributed to it.
Yeah.
So that was challenging, but that's how we applied it first. And then, of course, we decided based on the behavior change they expected, what content should we deliver. So basically, what kind of exhibits do we want to show during the trade show? What's really of value for the visitors, and what provides added value to them. And that's how we defined then the exhibits, what we wanted them to learn. So we defined the booth stuff, which was also a change, because normally you have the sales people on the booth. But we said we also need product experts, not just sales. Don't push the visitors too much to buy your products. Also keep in mind that they just want to understand how they can apply to their job. And so we changed the booth stuff slightly, had different experts on the booth. And finally, the learning environment. Of course, what do you do with trade shows? You plan your booth, you want to make it nice, you want to let your visitors feeling well and welcomed. And so we designed the booth according to our learning objectives. And then we spend a lot of time on target audience. So we have implemented another methodology to define what your audience needs and who is the audience. So for us to better understand how should we address them on an emotional level. So are they more technical people? Are they more management? Are they more emotional people or facts driven, and so on? And that's how you then define what kind of message you put on your nice displays on booth. And so,
okay.
And that's how we applied it to this trade show first time. And then we, of course, measured results. And that was a next challenge. So if you don't have an infrastructure in place that helps you to measure then it's very difficult, because then you can only ask the experts, means the sales teams who knows their customers, if the results were as expected. And this is, of course, just not really what you want. You want to have facts and really try to measure it as exactly as possible. And so we improved our CRM system to better measure the leads. We uploaded the leads, and then we were able step by step to better find out how many phone calls did we get, how many meetings have been scheduled, and we had to, of course, drive the sales teams to use this CRM as their reporting tool. Because if they don't tell us how many phone calls they have received, you would have to call every single one of them. And we had 250 people on the booths, so you can't do this.
Okay, it's a problem in many companies, no, getting the information from sales teams. Just one last thing. How long after the show is your measurement exercise over?
That's another agreement you have, or let's say a rule that you have to define. So what we have talked to sales, they are the only ones who know how long the sales cycle is. So they know from the first contact. So if you're talking about new clients, for example, the first touch point, the first contact, for example, on a trade show, until a deal is closed, how long it takes for specific products. And that is different. It really depends on the solutions you're selling. The products are even different. So you cannot say, I do it for weeks and then it's over. So we measured 3 months.
Okay.
But then we stopped saying that this is now just influenced by a trade show. So what we did additionally, we did a survey with the sales teams. And we compared revenue peaks, for example, during the event and afterwards, if there was still a peak and increase in revenue. And then we asked the sales teams additionally in how far they think that this can be assigned to the event or any other marketing activity we have done during the 3 months period.
Okay, fantastic. Elling, one more example of a different event, ideally.
Yeah, I think I would give you an example of when it was really easy. Okay?
We can start easy.
And this was the Fresh conference, which happens every year as a meeting design conference in 2018. Long before COVID, it was a multi-city hybrid meeting. So I was in Turin in Poland. There was somebody in London and Portugal, Lisbon, Johannesburg. And there was a small group of people physically at each site. The main sponsor was Abbott Meeting Support. Now they sell technology and meeting design for virtual and hybrid meetings. So they put a lot of sponsorship money into the event. They'd done some, because they wanted to sell their services to the participants and their friends. Before the event, they did some research to find out what are the barriers which prevent people from doing online events. They found three main problems. Number one, they're afraid the technology is not going to work seamlessly. Secondly, it's hard to engage participants. Thirdly, networking is difficult. So amongst all the other measurements we did, during the opening session, we gave them 3 questions, or 3 statements to agree, disagree with. Technology problems, engagement of participants, networking. And we got the answers from their apps. And then at the closing session on the second day, we asked exactly the same questions again to see if their attitude had changed. For fear of technology, the change was very big. And now they had experienced how it can work perfectly. And there was a huge improvement. And the same for participant engagement, a huge improvement. For networking, there was no change. So immediately they could measure whether they had met their clear, measurable objectives for attitude change as a form of learning. And you can see how they didn't follow it through all the way, but they would have objectives like, from 150 participants, we want 10 inquiries in the next 3 months for online event services. And out of those 10 inquiries, we want 2 contracts. And then they could simply take the gross profit from those 2 contracts, compare it to the sponsorship value. Did we make a profit or not? Not difficult.
And this is just very conservative because there's a lot of other values that are harder to measure. But
you wouldn't be able to measure something that says at least we made a profit, and then there were other benefits as well.
Okay, we're going to go to questions. There's a couple of questions. What the lesson I draw from your 3 interventions is that it's actually much more a consulting work, much more a strategy work than the technicality, than the controlling or the mastering the technicalities of measurement. You've hardly talked of measurement. You've talked of segmenting people, understanding their need, understanding what we want to change in them. The segmentation,
Let me tell you, one of the best moments of my career. I nearly cried. I almost cry when I think about it. One of my students in the UK, and I met her for a follow-up meeting. It's a few months after she did the ROI training. And she said to me, you know, Elling, when I go to customer meetings now, I feel so much more confident because I know that I understand even better than my client what exactly they want to get out of this event. And, you know, I feel almost like a management consultant, not just a meeting planner. So you're absolutely right. It's about, you know, it's management consulting more than just, you know, creating a party.
I'm silenced. The first question we have, good morning, everyone. My question is, what percentage of the total budget of an event should be allocated to ROI measurement? I believe that there's not one standard figure, but maybe you give a rank. Does it ever happen that more than 10% of the budget goes to ROI measurement, which I believe is going to be really, really difficult? Is it expensive?
You know,
what's the maximum amount in percentage terms that you've seen dedicated to ROI?
I'm not even sure if I think the question is relevant. You know, how big is a fish? I've just told you that 80% of the measurement task is setting objectives. Well, you need to set objectives if you're going to have a good event anyway. That's your planning cost. You know, that's just being a professional planner. To collect simple data like you do for questionnaires or the apps on site is an insignificant cost. You're only talking about spending serious money if you get into really sophisticated, difficult, you know, telephone follow-up, like Rosa was saying, 3 months later, you have to have people for hours and days following up by telephone, etc. But most of the time you don't go that far. And it's really just an integral part of the cost of doing the job professionally.
It's more change of mindset than adding more things.
There are guidelines like saying, you know, there's a rule of thumb that says if you're going to go all the way to the Holy Grail and you're going to have this financial number at the end of the day and you've done all that stuff, maybe 3% of your event costs could be measurement. But the thing is, before you get into the difficult, time-consuming, expensive type of work at the top of the pyramid to measure the actual money in the end, you should do all these other simple, cheap measurements, which is part of professional planning anyway.
Okay. Rosa?
Yeah, I think one of the most common misconceptions is that it's all or nothing, right? Either you measure everything up to financial ROI or you don't do anything. And that's the opposite of how it should be. There are so many grays in between. So I would recommend to start small and only measure financial ROI if it's like your most important event with the largest budget. Then maybe it makes sense, but you don't have to, it's not all black or white, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your 3 examples. That the welcome song of this webinar was Monet by Pink Floyd. We always play a song, and I believe that this is a wonderful song, but also an incorrect one for what we're discussing today, because some people think it's only about financial ROI. My event cost me 100. How much money am I getting? And several of the examples you've given are not about direct translation to euro terms. It's just meeting very strategic objectives. Ilka?
Yeah, and I also want to add to what Rosa said. So it's often a misunderstanding that only the financial impact counts. So events are much more than that, of course. It's about brand awareness, attitude change. So sometimes it makes a lot of sense to weigh your objectives and to say, okay, how important is it from a percentage point of view that we achieve the attitude change, that we get, for example, a behavior change managed through the event, things like that. It might be even more important at the first step than having a positive ROI. So that's really something you need to know exactly why you're running an event. And that's why it's so important to define your objectives first to find out.
There's another question for Elling. Is there a book with a collection of real cases that includes the definition of objectives, activities, what activities were implemented, and the results? Is there a book on ROI, or are you going to write this in your retirement? Microphone, Elling. Mike.
There isn't a book about ROI specifically for meetings and events. There are more than 100 books on ROI in general for other applications. There's a Spanish guy who wrote a book on ROI in marketing. Forget his name.
Pablo Turleti, no?
Yeah, Pablo, yeah. I've made some videos which are quicker and easier, and lots of articles and case studies, which they can find on our website, evantroi.org. I mean, go there and watch the videos. That would be a very, very good start.
Okay. What's going to happen to evantroi.org? Because you believe that you're going to retire now, which you're not, but you believe it. And so who's going to take over?
Ilka and Rosa. And the website is not going to disappear, and all the information is there.
Okay.
Go there.
Okay.
That's the behavior objective for this webinar. Dear participant, go to evantroi.org and watch the videos. I have written down how many views we have today, and I'm going to check in a week to see if we meet our behavior objectives.
Okay, everybody write to your families and get them to evantroi.org. It is really worth it. I'm just the interviewer here, but my experience is really worth it to get interested in that. It sounds very complex. It sounds maybe too good to be true, and perfect ROI is too good to be true. But there's, as Rosa says, there's a lot of things we can improve using this way of thinking. Elling, are we a conservative industry? I believe during 15 years, quite a few people have...
You know, like mankind, like people in general, we don't change easily. We want to feel comfortable, and change takes time. And we have a long way to go still.
When you brought your concepts to meeting professionals, what would you say the reaction is in general? Interest, but also skepticism because, oh, you're going to judge my work. I'm just happy organizing nice hospitality moments which cannot be measured. Was there a lot of resistance in your experience?
Well, I mean, nobody can disagree when you say we should measure business results and make the event better. You know, in principle, it's hard to disagree with that. But the tradition has been that, you know, if participants are happy and we have some big wow and everybody enjoyed it, well, it must have been good. And that's a sort of a culture, a mindset of management, which is hard to change. You know, when I first started, I thought, wow, this is fantastic. You know, everybody's going to want to know. And people just going to start flocking to my training seminars, etc. And it took a while until I realized that changing mindsets of an industry, changing management culture takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we have to, I've persevered for 15 years. It's going to take another 15 years, just because change is hard. But I, in a way, I blame, if you like, for us not doing more measurement. I do blame on the buyers, on the corporate buyers, on the meeting owners, who continue to be happy, spending a lot of money. And what I get in return is somebody tell them that everybody was happy. I mean, they need to start saying, okay, but I don't organize events to make some people happy. I want you to convince me that we had some really valuable business results, or you don't get the contract to organize my event. That's what needs happening. You need to keep the budget, and you need to make everybody happy, and you need to give me some data to convince me that this was a good business for our company to spend the money. That's the critical thing.
Rosa, Ilka, is it a game changer? I mean, you're more on the organizing side. You were always, you were traditionally in the corporate side. Ilka, is it a game changer in your role and your projection as an event professional? When you were purely events, I believe, yeah, that today you do a bit more than that, but is it very important to get recognition? Because the whole meeting industry says we are not fully recognized. Your experience is that this is a key to recognition?
It is, well, I'm in a sales organization, it is not 100% game changer, because they are used to think in objectives and facts and figures. So it's a little bit easier. But it is a game changer in so far that you are much more focused. And normally they if you work with the sales team, they don't think so much about what content should we deliver, how should we deliver the content, what kind of atmosphere should we create to deliver it. And that's a big mindset change, because now in the past we wanted to show everything, our whole portfolio, so everything we have, because we are so great, we have such a big portfolio, and that helps you a lot to focus, and that's what they understood. So it's really about better understanding the target audience and better understand how you deliver so that a behavior change is possible. And that's the biggest change we have achieved. And then, of course, it was a big change for general management, that they are now able to show a conversion rate, so they can present how much we have invested and how much we got out of it from a trade show or any kind of event. And that has changed. So in the past, that wasn't able. That wasn't possible. So it was
and
just
trade shows. The conclusion is that trade shows are a good investment, in a nutshell.
Well, it has changed. COVID has changed a lot.
Yeah.
So we rethink our whole event strategy right now.
But before COVID, trade shows was clearly justified as a marketing investment, marketing and sales investment.
It will stay. It will definitely stay. Just the selection will be done much more carefully.
Okay. Rosa, game changer?
Well, I would say from the beginning of my career in events, I started with Elling, so it's not like, I was first a meeting planner and then I did this and then my career changed. But I can say that this has given me lots of opportunities that I don't think I would have had if it wasn't for this experience and this expertise and knowledge. So yeah, for me it's been for sure.
And in your projection as a PCO, you find that clients see you differently when you ask these questions, that the case study that you told us at the beginning, that you see the learning needs of each player. Clients say, oh my God, this person is not here to sell me hotel rooms. She's here to help me in something important.
Yeah, well, I've been because of this, I guess because of this conversation, I've been invited to meetings that were really about the strategy of the event, really like strategic meetings that a meeting planner is not invited, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A seat at the table.
Yes, I suppose.
Wonderful. Is it possible to measure an event? Because an event is a dot in a continuous relationship. If we take the example of an event with clients, the clients will come to the event, they will meet their sales reps before, after, they will check the website, they will see an ad, they will see a promotion in the store or whatever. There's going to be a lot of things impacting what goes on here. Isn't that the nightmare of event ROI, that how to isolate? What's your view? Maybe I have to ask the guru this one. No, the guru doesn't control technology.
We want it to be difficult because we need, for our events to deliver value, they need to be part of something bigger. You know, today we talk about the campaign, not just the event. So we want to make it more and more difficult to isolate the event itself. You can do that, but isolation is where it starts to get complicated. So focus on what you do before it starts to get complicated, and use the methodology for designing your event to make sure that your objectives are clear, you have the target audience, you can always measure learning. Measuring behavior is quite easy as well. And if you can measure those which are directly related to the event, then you've got good proof that the event played its part in the bigger whole of all these other influences. You can isolate, but as Ilka says, you need the infrastructure, you need the CRM, you need a lot of stuff. Well, just because that's, more difficult, and you'll get to there maybe later. Start with the easy part. Measuring target audience and learning environment and learning and even behavior is easy. So start doing that. Like Rosa says, it's not, all or nothing. And don't worry so much about the complications. You want it to be complicated, maybe just leave it like that. Measure all those things that you can measure for the event specifically.
Okay. We don't have much more time. Two questions. The first one, all these digital craze today, the virtual event, the webinars, do you think this will impact the measurement culture? Do you think it will develop the measurement culture? Maybe I'll go and throw this one at Rosa.
Yeah.
Because you organize a lot of congresses online as KNS.
Yes, now everything is online basically, and everything. One of the good things, I guess, is that everything can be measured, or almost everything. Everything is recorded. So I guess once we go back to face-to-face events, we will want to continue having so much data. So why not? I think that's a great
brought up our
possibility.
data maturity.
Yes.
Okay. Good. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to say. If not, I would ask you for either a piece of advice or a funny anecdote in all these years measuring. I don't know what was the funniest thing you measured, or the behavior of people in a measurement exercise. A tip or an anecdote. We're going to start with Elling, who's like smiling like this, so he has something in mind.
For your next event, just ask yourself maybe, what exactly do we want participants to physically do because they attended the event? Think behavior, not feeling and thinking. Think, if I was in their office in a week from now, what would I want to see each of them doing, which they would otherwise not have done? Ask yourself, why don't I do that already? And then you say, how can we make them do that? How can we create, why don't they do it? How can we create the learning experience that makes them do that? What do we want them to do? Why don't they do it already? How can we make them do that? That's the purpose of the event. And go to eventroi.org and watch the videos.
I asked for one piece of advice. You give me 4 or 3 pieces of advice and a sales pitch.
And you're complaining. You should pay more.
Ilka, advice, anecdote, anything?
I have an advice. I think we mentioned it a few times already. Focus on 1 or 2 level of behaviors. Don't try to define objectives on all the levels and to measure everything. That's challenging in a first step if you haven't done this before. And then provide a proof of concept. So show your management that what you have measured and the results, and then they will raise interest. And then you can step by step improve it and implement it further.
Okay. Rosa.
Okay, well, for a change, I'm going to speak about an anecdote. As I mentioned before, this gave me the opportunity, many opportunities. And one of them was when I was I think I was like 26 years old. I was invited to do a 1.5 hour lecture on ROI measurement in Colombia, in Medellin. So I went there, and all this was in a conference, and the other speakers were Corbin Ball, Guy Bigboot, big names, and most of them were males in their 50s and 60s, and there was me, 26-year-old, talking about ROI measurement. So I was there for 1.5 hours just talking about ROI, and what was the first question I had from the audience? There were maybe 500 people, if I'm not mistaken. So this man raises his hand and says, I've got a question. Are you married? That was a question I got. And I was so angry, because I know if Elling had been talking about that, he wouldn't have gotten that question. So
you would be surprised. Elling.
Maybe, I don't know.
So objectives.
Exactly, that's a guy you had the ROI in mind, Rosa.
I don't know, but I thought that was very embarrassing for me. But yeah, it's still funny. No.
Yeah, I guess society has changed a bit, and probably you wouldn't get that today. Some things are getting better. It's frustrating because this is a huge topic, and we don't have much time, and we want to keep our webinars short. So I don't know, maybe we'll do a part 2 since after Elling sees that the traffic to his website has doubled in the week. We're gonna do a second part. I want to thank you. I want to congratulate you mostly, Elling, because all these years you've been a missionary. You've been an amazing. You've known what you thought was necessary for the industry, and I think it was necessary, and you were tirelessly evangelizing our industry. And I think the mission is not complete, but you have brought an amazing value, strategic value to our industry. So you can retire with a good conscience. You've done your job. Ilka, as Elling said, corporate clients are not always quick to follow this. It's easier to organize hospitality events than to question your value added with ROI. So I want to congratulate you, and I hope all companies adopt that mindset. And maybe a special congratulations to Rosa, because she's right. When she was 26, she was fearless. She decided to focus on what was bringing strategic value to this industry. So there was meeting design, and there was ROI. She moved internationally. That's how I believe she started working with our ROI Institute. And so I want everybody to have the attitude of Elling, of being constant in where we have to go. I would like all the companies to have the strategic vision of Ilka, and says if we do something, we're going to do it well strategically, and we're going to measure it. And I want all young people to have the daring attitude of Rosa, which I find admirable. And I think I don't have anything else to say. Thank you, guys. And maybe
thank you, Eric.
And maybe to our audience, it's not that complicated. We've seen it's not that costly. We've seen that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So you can start walking a bit. And I think the testimonies we heard today really should convince us that it's really worth it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Elling, come back. You can be in retirement for a few weeks, then you can come back, and the industry needs you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you to Meetmaps, the registration platform, to Wachiti for the connectivity, to Christina for the technical control of everything that's going to happen. Regiduría, and thanks Ilka, Elling, Rosa.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.